Genesis chapter 37, verses 2 through 5 have been read for you. As we look at Genesis chapter 37, verses 2 through 5, but especially 1 through 5, we think about Joseph and family strife. Joseph and family strife. Sometimes in life we find out that there are situations and relationships that cause strife. There are husbands and wives that are arguing with each other all the time, and they are in a situation of strife. Sister Wynn, sometimes it is family that finds themselves, brothers and sisters, mothers, daughters, and sons, oftentimes in a system of strife. And so we can sit and act as though we don't know anything about this, but I think that most of us who consider ourselves to be a member of the human family find that oftentimes strife is a very real factor within the relationships that we have. Interestingly enough, it seems, Sister King, that sometimes the strife comes between the people that we know the best. The people who we love the most are oftentimes, Mother, the people who we're able to argue with and fight and hurt the most. And so as we look into this text, we see a rather large family. We don't see a small family here, but we see a family that needs a little bit more than the average dining room table. Because we see here the family of Jacob, and Jacob has many sons. Jacob has a few sons here, and they don't seem to get along. They are sons that come out of an alternative relationship, as we would call it today, because he has several children by different women. And we can see that there is a conflict here, Brother Dalen Moore, between the idea of trying to support a family with different children and different mothers. Because there's certain to be some strife that comes forward, because there are situations where strife enters our life even when we enter into situations that we think of as usual, regular, and normal. And so when we move beyond that, we find ourselves with more personalities to deal with. So now in this text we can see that there are some personalities to deal with, and the text tells us that from the very outset, because it tells us here that, number one, Jacob was in the land of his father, but in the land of his father he was a stranger. And so it's interesting that he is, in a sense, a homeboy, but even though he's a homeboy, he's a stranger in a home situation. Well, maybe somebody doesn't really understand this, but Sister Jackie Turner, I think I can explain it. I left Liberty Hill, pastored another church for 14 years, and I came back home to the place where I was raised, to the place where I grew up, and I found myself, in a sense, a stranger at home. See, sometimes while you're away, things change. Sometimes while you're away, there are different personalities that will land themselves. While you're away, sometimes you will find out that there are things that change. You know, I don't know about you, but if you walk away long enough, you come back to a situation that is different. Interestingly enough, in the family, you will find out, as in many situations, that we go through things individually, but we go through things collectively. I say that because it is important for us to recognize that sometimes, Brother Marshall, the situation that you're going through in your life, you may think that it does not affect those around you, but when you're going through something, oftentimes the children feel what you're going through. I've said to somebody not too long ago that has young children, and they have young children, and they're in a relationship that is outside the confines of marriage. I said to them, if you break up, what happens to the children? I said, well, our children are all babies. And I said, don't think that babies don't understand when there's a strife or when there's discord in the family. See, what you think does not affect your whole family is affecting everybody around you, but oftentimes we are so selfish that we don't realize that not only am I a stranger, but because I'm here, I've now made my family a stranger. And so what happens is the spirit of that strangeness begins to work its way through the family. I wish I had somebody that could see this thing, because oftentimes where you are in life, the rest of the family is there too. Right now, Sister Kelly and I are in the middle of transition. We are changing where we live. We're changing where we live. We're changing the way that we do things. We're having to go through some financial restructuring and rebudgeting because of the way that we're changing, renovating a new property and all of those kinds of things. And so we're going through a change. And so I thought maybe Reverend Cosom that it was just me, but now I've talked to several of the members of this church, and guess what? There are other folks who are going through these same changes and going through these same renovations, and then talk to the trustees. And so what's going on here at the church? Going through some changes, going through some renovations, going through some differences between this one and that one, trying to make things better and move forward. And so what happens is oftentimes whoever's leading, there's a spirit that's going to go from the head all the way through. And so here, I don't think it's by happenstance that we start off by finding out that the father is in a strange land, but at the same time, or in a familiar land, but with strange people. And so what happens is it then tells us these are the generations of Jacob, but notice it does not give us all of the children's names. It just tells us that he had children by different people, because Joseph was 17 now. He's feeding the flock, and he wants us to know that he was with the sons of Bilhah and with Zilpah. And so we recognize that there's some different wives here. But notice what he does. Joseph, who is he is the firstborn son of the last set of children. The youngest son is Benjamin. Joseph is the second to the youngest son. He is the son of his father's Love Jones, if you will. This is the woman that he really loved, the woman that he really liked. You know, we are human, and so we oftentimes have some favorites. And so the woman that he really was his favorite, this is the first child from that woman. He was waiting for that woman to get pregnant. She wanted to get pregnant but could not. And everything around her that was with him was having babies, but she couldn't have one. And y'all know how it is. Y'all act like y'all don't know about it. I know you're sophisticated, but you know, I have some hood rat ways, and I'm gonna tell you something. One of the things that you might find out is that over in the hood, when you got a man and you want a baby, that you always want to have the boy so you can tell the others, look what I got. Now, y'all act like y'all don't know that's the truth, but I'm going to tell you, it's been a many hospital prayer that been prayed. Ask God, please let me have the boy so I can tell him I got the boy, baby. And so finally, this woman, his love child, this Joseph is his love child. And so now this child comes forward, and he's got some ways like a brat. And so notice in verse 2, what he does is he comes and he tells his daddy the evil report of his brothers. And so if you want to avoid family strife, you need to beware of tattling. Some of us talk too much. And we talk too much about somebody else rather than dealing with our own business. We're busy dealing with somebody else's business. You got problems at work because you won't shut up. You think the boss likes you because you're the one that comes and tells, but nobody likes the fact that you are carrying a bone all around all the time. Because if anybody really sizes you up, they realize that if you're telling on them today, you'll be telling HR about me tomorrow. So I'm going to tell you, nobody really likes a tattletale. And so in the family, there are some times where we need to keep some things to ourselves between us and God, and let's stop running around telling everybody's business. And so this young man goes and tells his daddy, daddy, they did this, daddy, they did that, and so on and so forth. And you know, sometimes the same thing happens in churches. Somebody always got to go tell the pastor. Go tell pastor so-and-so. Go tell pastor so-and-so. Then they wonder why pastor looking so old. It's because you keep bringing him all your negative mess. That's why he looks old. Sometimes this happens in families between husband and wife and children. There are some mothers that will not stop tattling on their children. There's some fathers that don't do nothing but complain about their children. When are you going to be the parent and just go ahead and take care of it and leave it alone? Maybe you're a housewife. Maybe you've been at home all day dealing with the children. When he comes home from work, he don't want to hear all that. Maybe both of you work and you get home earlier than the other. Deal with it and move on. Sometimes we would do good. You know what? I tell you what, I'd rather either Kelly look old or me look old. But one of us ought to look young. One of us ought to look good. Don't just tear the other person down with all of the mess of the day. Stop tattling on everybody. There are things that you need to take to God. And so there's some folks say, well, how do you do that? Well, there are a couple of things that you need to do. Number one, if you look at, well, number one, you need to stop tattling. But number two, look at this. Look at 3. It says, now Israel loved Joseph more than all of his children because he was the son of his old age. And so one of the things you need to do is overcome favoritism. Sometimes our biggest problem is our favoritism. And favorites between children and grandchildren is a bad thing to do. Got to overcome that favoritism, because sometimes that favoritism gets us in trouble. And if you're anything like me in your lifetime, you can learn from your favoritism. Because, Brother Wesley, there's sometimes when my favorites have let me down the most. Lord knows in the church, Pastor King and Reverend Haynes, I know you've pastored before. And I'm going to tell you something. If you've ever pastored a church, you find out that sometimes the folk who you think are the shining stars of the congregation, those stars fall very quickly. Sometimes the very folk who you think are going to really shine are the folk who disappoint you the most. I've been disappointed at times as I look around the church and I look and I see the things that people do. Sometimes I just shake my head and say I thought one thing and found out yet another. And so we have to be careful with our favoritism, because as soon as you choose a favorite, you'll find out that you've caused problems as you chose that favorite. If you look at verse 4, you'll see why. Now Israel loved him, that's in 3. Then he made him a coat of colors, so he made him something with his own hands. And then in 4, when his brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than them, they hated him. And so what happens is unhealthy love breeds hate. Unhealthy love breeds hate. It is very true that there's a thin line between love and hate. Don't you think for 1 minute there are folk who come in my office and they'll talk about being in love with somebody. They want to get married. And one of the first questions I asked them, Sister Magwood, is, are there any unresolved relationships in your life? All right. And oftentimes they'll go back in their mind and they'll talk about somebody that they hate or somebody that they dislike. And I'm going to tell you right now that if you've got a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever you want to call it, and you've fallen out with them and you just absolutely hate them, I hate to tell you this, but any feeling is a feeling. And you're still giving energy to that person. And as long as that energy is there between you and that person, you're not ready for anybody else. Unhealthy love breeds hate. And that hate is a feeling that is a valid feeling that will hold you hostage from other kinds of relationships. So I say, Pastor, you need to prove that. Let me prove that to you. While they were busy hating the one brother, they were not able to fully enjoy the relationship between each other, because they were focusing their energy on negative kinds of things. And sometimes you and your other sister are so busy talking about the other sister that you forget to ask each other how your day has gone. Because while you're busy talking about them, what you forget is that you're neglecting to build a relationship between the two that could actually be together. You got to be careful putting your energy into, and your love and your hate, whatever it might be. You've got to be thinking about how you focus your attention. Whether you are focusing it toward love or whether you focus it toward hate. And so this unhealthy kind of love in a family can breed hate, and parents need to be careful. Siblings need to be careful in pointing out one child over the other child. If you got children, more than one, and treat them as best you can the same. Now, if you just got one mama, you can focus all your attention on one. If you're an only child, then that's fine. But if they're brothers and sisters, you need to make sure that you don't breed this unhealthy love. Then look at 4. They hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. Know that your attitude affects your speech. See, when your neck is twisted, when your hand is on your hip, it's hard for the words to come out of your mouth that are kind. Sometimes the way that you go into the thing is going to affect the way that you come out of the thing. See, while you're busy trying to get something done and you cussing people out, and they're hanging up on you and you trying to figure out why, it's because of your attitude. And sometimes the way that we look at things causes our speech to become different. The Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath. And sometimes you're trying to figure out why you can't reach nobody and why they're sending you straight to voicemail. It's because you get on people's nerves. You need to learn how to talk to people. Your attitude is bad. And when your attitude is bad, and when you're always snapping your neck, and when you always just got your hands on your hips, people don't want to listen to what you got to say. And so you got to learn how to change your attitude. You got to learn how to look at things differently. Rather than to find a fight, you need to find some favor. Rather than to be mad at the outset, you need to begin to say, God, how can I look at this in a different way? So maybe I'm not the favorite child. But you know, sometimes when you're not the favorite child, Mother Chapman, it allows you to do some things because while your mama or while your daddy is looking at the favorite child, you might get away with a couple things yourself while they're busy. And so it's all about our attitude. And who knows, maybe if you change your attitude, you might be the favorite child. But you know this favorite child, verse 5, Joseph dreamed a dream. And he told it to his brother, and they hated him more. Joseph turned around and he told his brothers that basically he saw that he was going to be better than them, so to speak. Sometimes what we need to do to keep down strife is to learn how to shut up. That really tells you all about it. Sometimes we wonder why is it so hard for me to be blessed? Everybody else is getting blessed and everybody else is passing by me. I'm going to tell you, if I might, Brother Sloan, just testify for a moment. The Lord has richly blessed me. I can't complain about nothing. And if I did, I would be frightened that the Lord would be upset because he's blessed me too much for me to complain. Just this past week, Brother Saunders and I was at the store buying some building supplies. Stopped and there was a guy that I've been knowing for a while in the store. He said that not too long ago, our church called a new pastor. He said, Pastor Shaw, did you put your resume in at our church? I said, did I put my resume in at y'all's church? And so he looked at me again, and Sister Risa Moore, he said, yeah, did you put your resume in at our church? I said, I need to ask you a question. When's the last time you've been down Refugee Road at the corner of Hamilton and Refugee. I said to him, no, I didn't put my resume in at y'all's church. I said I wouldn't leave Liberty Hill for y'all's church. The Lord has blessed me. I can't complain about nothing. Lord has blessed me. The Lord has blessed this church, and he's done some wonderful things with us and in us and through us. And so as I think about it, and I think about the way that the Lord has blessed us, I think that one of the things that the members of this church, if you've been here long enough, you know that there's sometimes I will shout to the top of my lungs and tell you how good God has been. But I think most folk will tell you that in the midst of the struggle and in the midst of what God is saying to me when he's talking to me, I don't share that with folk. I don't share that with folk. I don't tell everybody my business. I don't open my mouth and tell everything I know. There's some things that the Lord has shown me, and there's some things that the Lord has grown in me, but I don't have anything to say about it. When it was time to move, when it was time to come here, I didn't say anything to everybody. I didn't call up a whole bunch of friends and say, think about what the Lord is getting ready to do. I'm not one of those folk who tell all my business. Right. I'm going to tell you why. Because in the world, there are some haters. There are some folk that stay mad. There are some jealous, sick, depressed folk who are always not wanting to celebrate with you, but they want to pull you down every time they get a chance. Let me tell you, they already don't like you because God has blessed you, because his Father made him a coat of many colors. But let me tell you, the Bible says that God created me. He created me and shaped me in his own image. I look like my daddy. I don't have to brag about it. I just happen to know that the Lord has blessed me because he wonderfully made me with his own hands. He didn't farm me out. He didn't contract me out. He didn't speak me out, but he kneeled down and he formed me with his own hands. He's made me, and I'm wonderfully made. And so therefore I already know that I've been blessed. You don't have to tell me I'm blessed. I already know that I'm blessed. God has blessed me, and not only has he blessed me, he has gifted me because he gave me Jesus to die on the cross of Calvary, that his blood might cleanse my sin-sick soul. I'm already blessed. I don't have to tell nobody. I can just live a blessed life. I can walk blessed. I can talk blessed. I can speak blessed. I can write blessed because God has blessed me. I don't have to open my mouth to be blessed. Some of us have always bragged and boasted, look at what I got, look at what the Lord has done. I can just walk it out and let you know that God has been good to me, and the Savior that has fixed me and blessed me, you can see him inside of me, as my grandma say, working inside of me. If you walk the walk and talk the talk, sometimes you're just able to walk in the room and say good morning, and folk recognize you're blessed. And so I don't have to tell it all. I don't have to tell how much this costs. I don't have to tell anything about this or that. All I've got to do is just do it. And that's what God is calling us to do in order to bring down the stress. Stop bragging about it and be about it. Stop trying to wear your religion on your sleeve. Stop trying to, all the time somebody say something to you, you got to say, hallelujah, I'm doing blessed and great and got 10 scriptures to quote. Why don't you live some of them scriptures? Your life is hateful. Yeah. Just because you can quote scripture, let me remind you that the devil quoted scripture. So just because you can quote, just because you can read, just because you know how to pray, does not mean that the Holy Spirit is within you. Oh, you can shout huck-a-buck till Jesus come back and you're still on your way to hell. Speak in tongues, 3 or 4 different tongues. But the Bible tells me just because you speak in tongues and have not charity, it doesn't mean that you've got anything. And so you better start talking different and acting different and walking different and living different. You want to know why is it that I go to church and I still got so much hell in my life? It's because the Holy Spirit is absent from your life. There has to be a difference on the inside that's working on the outside. There's got to be a difference because I'm in the Word of God. There has to be a difference because I know Jesus and him crucified. Every now and then we always want to know Jesus and him resurrected. But the Bible tells me I must know him in the fellowship of his sufferings. And sometimes you've got to shut your mouth. Sometimes you got to take the low road. Sometimes you got to take it to the cross. Close your mouth and let God have it. Look at the testimony of Jesus and recognize that there's sometimes when this world going to spit on you. Sometimes the world will take you through some strife. You'll have to wear the crown of thorns. Sometimes they'll put the nails through you. But if you hold on to Jesus, you recognize that we know him in the fellowship of his suffering, but we also know him in the power of his resurrection. And so as I look around, I recognize that there's strife all around. There are folk that don't like me. There are folk that don't like you. There are folk that don't like us. But I'm going to keep on putting on my coat that my daddy made. All right now. I'm going to keep on recognizing that I've been blessed beyond measure. But I'll also recognize that I don't have to talk about it. All I got to do is live it. Because the power that is within me is greater than the power that is in the world. I'm glad, Sister Wynn, on the first Sunday of September, that Jesus has saved me. And I would hope today that here I am in the church. I would hope, Sister Littlefield, that I don't have no haters in here. Right now. I may not talk about a lot of things, but I wish I could just say God is good in here. Because I thought the last time I checked, this is a church. And there ought to be at least one or two other folk in this house that ought to know that God is good, that he's brought us from a mighty long way, that Jesus has died and has set us free, that he rose on the third day morning, and I'm free indeed. There ought to be two or three folk that could shout hallelujah one time because God is so good. There ought to be somebody that said he healed my body, he picked me up and turned me around and put my feet on solid ground, and I'm happy today because Jesus paid it all. Ain't God all right? Ain't God all right? Ain't God all right? I wish you could just say hallelujah one time. Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right? Ain't he all right in your life? Has he saved your soul? Has he saved your soul? Has he touched your body? Has he made you whole? You ought to say hallelujah one time. Could you just say thank you, Lord? Thank you, Lord. Woke me up this morning, started me on my way, and I'll tell you, he's all right. I feel like preaching in here. He put some clapping in my hands, some running in my feet, because God is good. In season and out of season, in the front door, through the back door. God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, and all he's done for me, because God is all right.